Welcome to the RAOB Program Configuration Options Display Preferences tab. All features shown are available to the RAOB Basic program unless otherwise indicated. The RAOB Program Options panels are accessed with the F9 shortcut key or by selecting the Options menu and then the Program Options. For this video, we will only demonstrate the Display Preferences tab. We'll first look at the default sounding diagrams section. These options determine which RAOB screen will be displayed upon initial activation. We started this video using the main sounding screen. This and the Custom View screen are available with the RAOB Basic program. The next three options, the Severe Weather, Winter Weather, and Fire Air Quality Weather displays, require use of the optional Analytic module. The Soundinggram requires the optional Soundinggram module, and the vertical cross-section requires the optional vertical cross-section modules. Note that even though these screens determine the initial RAOB activation display modes, these displays can be selected at any time using the main menu's display options as seen here. Now back to the Program Options panel. We'll look at the Diagram Options section. The first option to add month and year to sounding title using the file properties information instead of only the day and hour values only applies to WMO coded soundings such as those with the TTAA or TTBB coding groups. You should always leave this option off unless you are sure that the WMO data file properties reflect the actual observation times of the sounding. This is because WMO data only contain day and hour values. If you turn this option on, RAOB will take the year and month data from the data file's properties, which are typically the values that the file was saved with, which can be very much different than the actual sounding observation dates. The next option, to automatically adjust wind plot intervals, is primarily used when viewing soundings with high-density wind data. It is also best to leave this option on, unless otherwise needed. For example, with the current setting, RAOB plotted all winds found, because this sounding is a low-density sounding. If we turn off this option, we then must specify the wind plot interval. And if left at a ratio of 1:1, RAOB will plot all available winds. But if we change the ratio to 1:10, which only plots every 10th wind, then only 3 winds are plotted. So, let's temporarily turn the Easy Viewing option back on and plot a sounding which contains high-density data. This high-density sounding contains 2,209 data levels, and even though all the temperature and dew point data were plotted, RAOB only plotted 34 winds as a function of its automatic Easy Viewing option. This information is always listed below the Wind Plots box. And if we now recall the Options panel and change the wind plot ratio to plot all winds at a 1:1 ratio, the winds look much different and hard to distinguish, especially the wind speeds. However, there is another viewing option which can be helpful in this case. To see this, we'll close the Options panel, then right-click to call up the Diagram Options panel, and then look at the Sounding Data tab. Here we'll switch from the Shafts and Feathers view to the Variable Shafts mode. So let's undo the Variable Shafts and close this panel. Load the prior sounding and recall the Program Options panel, where it's important to note that there is a similar wind plot ratio option for cross-section diagrams. Okay, next we'll look at the wind plot feather orientation section. It is normally best to use the default hemisphere option on, in addition to selecting your default hemisphere. By using these settings, RAOB will assume the sounding data is from the northern hemisphere unless station coordinates are available from the sounding data, at which time RAOB will automatically adjust the wind plot feathers accordingly. If, however, you select either the right or left options, RAOB will always plot wind data with these orientations. For example, we'll change the option to the left orientation and apply. The wind feathers are now changed. And switching back to the default mode, the winds are back to normal for the northern hemisphere. Moving on to the pressure unit section, you can select either the millibars or hectopascal units. These are displayed on the diagram's vertical or y-axis grids and on all text listings like this one. The next section is for QNH units, or the altimeter setting. These values are primarily displayed on the sounding's surface line. To see this line, we'll close the Options panel, then right-click to open the diagram options, and select the Format tab. Here we'll turn on the Draw Surface Line option, and then Apply, and here we see the QNH in millibars. We'll now recall the program options and change the QNH units to HG, or inches of mercury. And there's the new QNH units. We'll now recall the Options panel and look at the standard height difference section, often called D-value units. Before continuing, it is a good spot to mention that each time a configuration option is clicked, additional information is displayed in the bottom text box as seen here. This one says that these units display the difference between the sounding data from the geopotential height standards for a given level. These values are often used by the aircraft industry and are only used by RAOB in 3 locations. To see the first one, we need to turn on the parcel data display box. To do this, we'll close the Options panel and right-click over the sounding to call up the diagram options panels and go to the Format tab. Now we'll activate the Cursor Data's Parcel option and close the panel. Now we can move the mouse around and see the D-value information listed as the plus and minus standard parameter or the plus and minus STD parameter, which is just under the height data. If we position the mouse over the surface data level, we can see a D-value of minus 56 meters. From here we can move on to the second way RAOB lists this information. To do this, we need to see the listings view. Here we could go to the listings menu option, but in order to leave the mouse where it is, we'll just press the spacebar, where we'll now select the complete listing view. Here we'll see the D-value data listed for each sounding level that contains pressure data, and in particular, we can see the same D-value of minus 56 meters among the surface data group. This now brings us to the third way D-value information is displayed, which is on the cross-section diagrams. So we'll now close this listing view and we'll call up a cross-section diagram. So here's our cross-section view, and now we'll load a simple example dataset. We'll select the Analyze menu option, then click on the D-value button. The thick black line indicates the region with 0 or no variation from the standard atmosphere height values, while the negative region contains heights below standard and the positive region contains heights that are above standard. We can also see this in color. First, we'll close the toolbar and open the diagram options with a right click. Select the Analyses tab and then turn on the Colorize option. Then click Apply and close. Now right-click along the left margin to recall the toolbar, and now we can hit the D-value button to color the diagram. The blue area reflects negative heights, and the red area reflects positive heights. And with a second click of the toolbar button, we can even overlay the D-value contours for additional information. Okay, now we'll continue with the program options discussion. And even though we're looking at a cross-section diagram, we can call up the program options panels from any RAOB location. So we'll just select the Options menu, and then again the program options panels. The next option for demonstration is the background screen color. This is only for appearance purposes and is a matter of personal choice. So we'll select the black option and hit OK. And there we have reversed black and white graphics. And now let's perform the same D-value analyses. First the colorized format, and then the isopleth overlays. So let's now close the toolbar and we'll recall the Program Options panel for the last demonstration, where we'll look at the Default Data Directories section. Here, there are two sets of options, one for sounding data and one for cross-section data sets, where each path has its own configuration button. Under the sounding path, there are two sub-options. First is the Display Most Recently Used Sounding Files. This is common with many programs and will list the last 10 soundings accessed for quick recall. The second option, to always update the last directory accessed, will automatically reconfigure the sounding data path with the location of the last plotted sounding. The last option is for the cross-section dataset files. The word dataset is a convention of the RAOB program. A dataset is a file which contains all the soundings used to construct a cross-section or time-height diagram. It not only contains the original sounding data, but it also contains over 100 derived parameters which can be quickly plotted, such as theta, turbulence, icing, CAPE, fog, and many others. Just one final note about these datasets. If we close the Options panel and go to the Edit menu, we can see two sub-options. The cross-section dataset file contains a list of the individual soundings used to construct the diagram, while the processed cross-section file contains not only the sounding data, but also the 100+ derived parameters. These and much more are discussed in the cross-section videos. And that completes the RAOB program's Configuration Options Display Preferences tab video. Thank you for watching.